Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I want to talk to you a little bit about how to be alone during a pandemic. So, this is a really important topic, and obviously, because this is something that the whole world is sort of going through at this time. And I think it's really important to highlight that we all literally have a basic human need for love and connection. We all are wired for attachment. It's part of how our species has evolved and survived for so long. And so while somebody, for example, who's really dismissive avoidant might be able to sort of deny their need for connection, at a very biological root level, we are all in need of connection no matter what. And so in this video, I'm going to take you through a little bit about how to be alone, how to fill your bucket for connection using strategies that will help to sort of find these creative solutions for you. And we'll talk a little bit about reprogramming the painful narratives that come out of being alone in the first place. So before I dive into all of this, we are still doing our With You promotion to support our community. We have 25% off 3, 6, 12-month membership bundles, and we have a full money back guarantee if you come in and you're not like super happy and elated with all the content, because we've got a lot of amazing stuff in there. 4 live weekly webinar calls. We have these group social events in there now where it's like Zoom video calls just to connect with individuals, guided morning and evening routines led by our attachment coaches. We have so much stuff going on in there. So check it out. The link in the description is below. So first and foremost, there's a wonderful quote that I really used to love, and it's an old Wayne Dyer quote, and he said, "You can't be lonely if you like the person you're alone with." And it's very well said. And I want us to look at the relationship to ourselves as literally being no different than a relationship to another person. If we, let's say, for example, are alone with a roommate during the pandemic and we're quarantined, we're isolated, socially distancing, and we're just around that individual, if we don't have a good quality of connection with that person, we're still going to feel lonely being around that person. So even though there's a physical body and a person around, it doesn't mean that we're not going to feel lonely. In fact, loneliness statistics talk so much about how loneliness is literally based off of the quality of our connections, the vulnerability, the depth, how much we feel seen, heard, understood by the people around us. And the same principles apply directly into the relationship to oneself. So if we are in a position where we don't have a good quality of connection with oneself, if we don't feel seen and heard by ourselves, if we don't feel understood by ourselves, if we don't have a clear picture of who we are and what we want to create during our time here, then we already are creating painful dynamics around being alone with ourselves. And sometimes we actually have to rebuild the relationship to ourselves if we've been sort of inactive in that area of our lives. Just like if we didn't really have a good relationship with, let's say, the pretend roommate in our theoretical scenario, you would have to actually work to rebuild that. You would actually have to have conversations, open up, try to connect, all these different things, so that over time we build the trust that we can go to that person and maybe soothe through them by sharing some of the things and asking for advice, things in our lives that we're going through, or by opening up and talking about our feelings, or just connecting and doing things together. Like, we have to build that trust to feel really good about what's going on there. And the same thing applies in the relationship to ourselves. So what I want you to first start by noticing is, when I'm working on how to be alone, how much am I leaving myself alone or abandoned? How much am I avoiding checking in with my feelings, avoiding checking in with what I need, avoiding having, things like journaling habits or meditation, or things where I actually just sit with myself and I try to see and hear what's going on within my internal reality. And if we're scoring really low in those areas because we're not doing much work there, then you can bet you're going to have a much more difficult time being alone, because being alone all of a sudden, especially during a pandemic, is forcing you to kind of be with a stranger. And so one of our first corrective measures becomes, can we show up in the relationship to ourselves? Can we sit with ourselves? Can we journal? Can we find out what our internal reality is made up of and try to connect to that? Can we trust ourselves to soothe? When we feel bad feelings, can we ask ourselves, what am I feeling? What do I need to feel relief? And I want you to notice on that topic of soothing, a lot of people who are really struggling to be alone, and don't get me wrong, like as I mentioned, being alone and being quarantined goes against our biological nature. So when there's an excess of it, it's still going to be problematic. I'm going to teach you how to deal with that part at the end. But when we're in a relationship to ourselves where we're not checking in with ourselves, we don't know what we're feeling or what we're needing, there's a big coping mechanism or pattern that people often use. And it's like, oh, I feel bad, so I escape myself. I binge watch television. I scroll mindlessly through social media to avoid my feelings and to numb. I eat food. I drink wine. I do whatever it might be. People have a lot of time and energy. Some people, it's just working in excess. But people often put a lot of time, energy, and effort into escapism, which is the ultimate leaving yourself alone, which will only further create more challenging dynamics in feeling alone in quarantine during a pandemic. So step one is learning to break those cycles. And one of the easiest ways to do this is to create habits for yourself, to create times during the day where you check in, where you journal, where you try meditate, anything to like observe and start trying to understand your internal reality. Then part two, we want to learn about our personality needs, because our personality needs are these subconscious needs that actually drive the vast majority of our behavior as a whole. And they impact the way we prioritize our time. They impact the way we spend our money, the way we connect with people, how we feel about other people, how we connect in romantic relationships, family relationships, friendships. They impact us so profoundly. I have an entire course on this in detail that helps you determine your personality needs. It's called Discover, Embrace, and Fulfill Your Personal Needs. And it is in the Personal Development School. You can check it out further. But basically, what we want to look at is like what's showing up in my behavior as drivers of things that I'm always prioritizing, always making time for, always thinking about, always focusing on. And these are these subconscious priorities you live by. And if you don't know what they are, it's harder to align with them and to really fill. You can think of these needs like buckets. And if they're not being filled and nurtured or watered to a certain degree, then we feel unfulfilled. What happiness is actually all about is feeling like we know our subconscious personality needs and those things are being fulfilled. Literally, that's like what fulfillment is about, not so much happiness, but fulfillment. So we really want to become aware of those things so that we can intentionally meet our own needs or intentionally learn to advocate for our own needs in our relationships to others. Now, when we look at our 6 basic human needs that are in a way linked to our personality needs, they're sort of underneath them to a certain degree. They're more like biological drivers than anything. We have this basic need for love and connection. Now, the need for love and connection, we're going to need it no matter who we are, no matter what our attachment style is. We can try to pretend and program ourselves to avoid or deny it, but it's going to be there. So another really important component of being alone is learning to meet our own needs for love and connection, learning to fill up our own buckets for our personality needs, because this empowers us to feel like we can fulfill ourselves at least halfway, and we're not running on empty the moment we don't have people to do it for us in our external world. And so some important questions you can ask yourself are, how can I meet my own needs for love and connection? And you can position it in a way that says, what makes me feel loved by people outside of me? And how can I learn to give those things to myself in the relationship to myself inside of me? AKA, if validation outside of me makes me feel loved, if words of affirmation, if somebody hearing my feelings, whatever it might be, I'm just pulling things out of the hat that are common. How can I give those things to myself? How can I encourage myself more often? Maybe I have rituals in the morning where I write stuff down I feel good about. How can I make sure that I'm hearing myself? Maybe I journal. Maybe I check in with myself every 3 hours throughout the day. Hey, how am I feeling? What's going on inside of me right now? What do I need? So we want to have these habits where we meet our own needs. And then as a secondary effort to this, when we talk about how to be alone during a pandemic, we can also advocate for our needs in new ways. So because we still naturally have a need for love and connection, we can try to have love and connection. We might be alone at home, but we can have love and connection through video calls, Zoom calls. I've seen couples going through this time who are in different countries or different areas and are in a long distance relationship and can't physically see one another. Set up dates where they literally sit down and they cook the same meal and they sit on Zoom and pour a glass of wine each and sit and have like a date through Zoom and things like this. So we can come up with creative strategies. It doesn't mean that we're going to feel like 100% like everything's back to normal, but what we can do is come up with creative strategies to sort of fill those buckets and create some relief for ourselves in this area. So that's another really important thing. And then the last thing, well, there's two more things. The second last thing is we also want to become really good at not telling ourselves painful stories when we're alone. A lot of people who fear being alone and are out of relationship to themselves, AKA out of relationship to their needs, being able to meet their own needs, understanding their needs, being able to spend time alone and connect to themselves instead of avoid themselves. A lot of people who aren't getting those components very right, and not because they're not capable of it or anything like that, but because we're not taught these things, they then tell painful stories and they take the pain of having needs unmet and they turn it into suffering by giving it really excruciating meaning. So this looks like, for example, going, I'm going to be alone forever. The lockdown's never going to end. I am, if I was a good enough person, I'd have more people who want to talk to me. I'm not likable enough, and that's why I'm in this position. When we give it really painful meaning, we make the aloneness turn into excruciating suffering, like really, really painful dynamics for ourselves. And then we really want to be aware of our stories and not take the horrible landscape that a lot of people are subjected to right now that's so difficult, and then double up on that trauma by then giving it even more painful meaning and making it that much bigger. We want to caretake ourselves, have compassion for ourselves, and not punish ourselves with painful narratives. And then the very last thing is, so much of being okay with being alone is actually about developing a vision for your life. Because if you have a vision, you have a focus. It feels like you have an identity. And I have this course coming out in just a couple days to set up for 2021. By the time you see this video, the course will be out. And it's all about how to literally create a vision and goals for your life at the subconscious level in a way that programs them in so that you can achieve them, you can be clear, you can feel aligned, all these different things. And the course is called Set and Achieve Goals with Your Subconscious Mind. And the point I want you to take, because I'm not going to go into how to do that right now, but the point I want you to take away from this is, if you know what your vision is and you wake up and you're like, I'm going to do this to contribute to my vision, I'm going to read this thing, I'm going to learn about this thing, I'm going to do this work, all these different things. If you have this clarity for what you're living for, that really makes you feel like when you wake up, you're comfortable in your alone time, because your time is being used for a purpose, for a mission, for something you're excited about, inspired to create and achieve, all these different things. So that also has a major impact on offsetting some of the suffering that can come with experiencing loneliness. So hopefully this makes so much sense. I can do more videos about this. Let me know your questions in the comments below. Let me know what helps you when you are feeling lonely or alone. And if you want to see any further videos on this, please let me know. And I think that's everything. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're getting a lot of value out of this channel. Thank you so much for watching and for being here, and I will see you in the next video.